This is Tea Time, where we bring you the latest and the biggest in the showbiz and celebrity buzz. It's not business as usual this morning, as we have a high-profile guest in the studio who you will get to meet very soon. But first, my name is Elsie Godwin, and I'm here with Ife Oshunkeye and Ife Omai.
How's it going?
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
How are you doing?
How's your weekend?
It was
Great.
good. It was good.
And yours?
Yeah, well rested.
Okay, so
Rested.
what's new?
How about you? You
just-
helped to a lot of poetry stuff.
Yeah, I was.
So
I was.
maybe you recite me a poem after the show.
I do written poem, not spoken
okay.
words. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, maybe you write me a poem then.
Yeah, I'll try. But it will
Okay.
be nice.
Well, we'll see about that. Let me be the judge of that.
Okay.
Okay.
So what's
the tea this morning?
Peter Okoye, he's threatening to sue the show organizers for using his picture to promote a show that's supposed to have only his older brother, I think. So yeah.
In Angola.
I mean, I think this beef between the both of them is pretty intense. Like, I'm sure this is not the first time that, you know, people have used his pictures for clout. But to see how, like, serious he's taking it, like, you know, don't use my picture, even threatening to sue them and all of that stuff is pretty intense.
Ife?
Basically, I think Peter has been very vocal about the fact that he's not close to his brothers, Jude and Rude Boy, which is Paul. That he hasn't been close to them for a while, and they do not even speak. So they all have their individual solo artistry going on right now. So obviously, if you use my picture for clout without my permission, then I think it's something to talk about. So I'm not going to defend Jude or defend Paul, but at the same time, we cannot differentiate. These guys can just be like, oh, we're in Angola, we didn't know about how deep it was and all of that. But at the end of the day, the rule has to be in the place. There's the rule of law. And if I'm a solo artist and that has been copyrighted, then I need you need my express permission before you can use my
I also wonder
picture
if
for
the
that.
brother was okay with them using his other brother for clout. Like, I'm sure you must
I
have
feel
seen.
like he wouldn't know. I mean, show promoters do almost everything possible to make sure the show sells.
And you
But
don't
we
think
can't
you
keep
wouldn't
making
see your own-
excuses for
Yeah,
these
you
people,
don't
because
think
at the
you
end
see
of the
your
day,
own-
you need to do your
No,
research.
you know, like Ife said earlier, so many people would use a picture of Peter or a picture
Yeah.
of Paul or any celebrity out there for clout. I mean, if it's just a random person, he probably won't have said anything. But this beef between them is really deep, and it hurts
is.
me. And I
It
hope
is.
they
I don't
find
even
a
want
way
us to see it as the beef side of it now. Now, this is the business angle. I'm a businessman. I'm
You
a
think,
solo
you think
artist.
if there wasn't
You-
the beef, he would have responded the way he's responding?
Yeah, obviously, it's because of the beef. That's why they are not together in the first place.
But you could
so
have split
if I
it
am
and
a
still not
solo
have the
artist-
beef. Remember, like, you could separate. You don't have to separate in
But
conflict.
come on, if you know the background story, you would know what led to the beef. You would know how one person was being sidelined.
And
how
that's what
one
we're
person
saying.
was
But you want to
getting
make it like it's
lesser
just
cash.
business, and it's just not. It's
No,
not just.
at the moment, it's
Okay.
just business.
Right.
Let's separate the beef from the business.
Anyway, so we'll see if they can separate the beef from the business or the business from the beef. I don't know, but I just hope that
Potato,
they'll come back
potato.
together, really, because it hurts me.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar, but, well, okay, I think it's time to introduce our studio guest. He's born over 4 decades ago in the month of September. Our guest is a Nigerian actor, film producer, and director. He is of the Igbo Minor Yoruba descent from Kwara State and the son of the famous theater and film producer Adelove. He started out working in a bank while doing some casual acting before deciding to move into full-time filmmaking, which prompted him to take a course at the New York Film Academy. He has made several award-winning movies, including Irakpada, the 2006 supernatural thriller film, The Figurine, which won 5 major awards in the African Film Academy, Phone Swap, which featured Wale Ojo, Joke Silva, Nse Ipe Etim, and the legendary Chika Opala, and of course, The CEO, which featured actors from Kenya, Morocco, Cote d'Ivoire, South Africa, and Nigeria. He's the CEO of Golden Effects Pictures and a Nigerian film and production company with multiple awards to his name and over 608,000 followers on Instagram. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make welcome the Pan-African filmmaker,
Bravo.
the CEO himself, Kunle Afolayan.
Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
It's
to
good to
have
have you
you
here.
Very good.
Thank you for
We are
inviting me.
honored.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so
So
I mean, there's a lot of questions, so we have to.
So who's
Who's
I
going
think let
first?
Ife go first because she wants
Yeah,
to.
lady
Okay,
first.
so I mean, because I'm new, I had to do a lot of research, but it didn't take me 2-3 minutes into researching to know that you are a very important person. Your work is renowned and really excellent, and I know that that's really rare in this industry. There's a lot of mediocre in our society, and we know we're working towards that. But you seem to be, the front line in trying to like advance that and all of that. And so far, your journey has been, from what I've read, I would say ups and downs, where sometimes you get dragged for misinterpretations or misunderstanding, but also you have also been given the accolades that you deserve. So,
Thank you.
my first question would be to say, like, I know that you were not just a midnight star or whatever. This is a lot of hard work, working from the bank and all that stuff. So, what would you say has been your fuel all this while, taking you up to where you are right now?
All right, thank you. Thank you for the accolades. Thanks so much. But for me, I think is just one thing, and it's consistency. From the onset, I think what I did was I set a goal for myself. And what was the goal? It wasn't to be popular or to be a celebrity or no. I said to myself that whatever I do must never lack something, and that is substance.
Right.
And I've realized that, if you're into anything, whatever it is, anywhere in the world, and you pay a lot of attention to details and, substance is key, I don't think you ever go wrong. And because I also believe in this land, Nigeria and Africa, I always ensure that I feed people with, one, what I believe, and also what I think will help document who we are, what will help preserve our culture, and also educate the younger generation. So these are three things you always see in my works. And I think that has really helped a great deal.
Was this a new desire, or did you always have that as a child? Because I know that your background isn't necessarily in. What did you study in university?
Economics.
Yeah, so I know that it's not in the. It's not something that you started with in your young.
Yeah, but the thing is, my father was a filmmaker.
Sure.
So.
Legendary filmmaker.
Thank you, my brother. But the thing is, growing up for us is just like what my children are experiencing now. When you grow up seeing or watching your parents do things that you are proud of, and some of these things rub off on you. Where you go out and everybody's saying hello to your father. You're wondering, how can I get here? Okay, I want to be like that too. We learned that, but my father never really didn't encourage us then, because he's always saying, look, education is key.
Right.
First go to school, and after, if you want to do. And look, right now, then I used to be like, what's wrong with this man? Most of his contemporaries were using their kids in the film, but he just wouldn't use us. And now I appreciate that more, because I could see the gap between us and those that were very open to, the system at that time.
Can you shed more light on that gap? Like, what do you mean? Is it like the toxic bits of being exposed to media at a young age?
Yeah, and this also happens abroad. If you look at Mokalik, a lot of these kids, when they get exposed to this, growing up, I think there is this pressure, that follows that kind of status.
Yeah.
And as a child, it's difficult for you to understand. So you have to be nurtured by your parent and people around how to behave and how to comport yourself. And these are some of the things Michael Jackson battled, all his life, and except if because we're all created differently. Talent is one, all right, then I feel I also believe in destiny, you know. But talent without hard work, you know, is nothing. But I think what has helped me is the fact that, okay, I actually studied business administration, but of course the media always write economics. There's a bit of difference, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And of course, which was what took me to the bank, you
Right.
know, and worked there for some time. But from the onset, I've always wanted to be a filmmaker,
Right.
especially when the era of the likes of my father seemed to, really died, sort of, due to economical hazard and all of that. And then the Nollywood that we have now started, which is the digital world. And when the digital world started, there was a huge gap between what was obtainable in the 70s and 80s and what, Nollywood was all about.
Yeah.
And I felt maybe I could break the gap. And that was actually what actually prompted me to say, look, okay, let's bring it from there and, use this new technology and make the industry a better place.
All right,
Okay,
so I'm glad
let's go for a quick break. When we come back, Ife will pick up the question. So the conversation with Nigerian filmmaker Kunle Afolayan continues right after this break.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect am. If you no talk, dem go beat you. Na 2,500 they pay.
Welcome back. You're watching Tea Time right here on Plus TV Africa, and we're carrying on with our conversation with veteran filmmaker Kunle Afolayan. Before we went on that quick break, Ife Oshinkere was going to ask.
Yes, I'm actually coming with a triple-barrel question right now.
Ife, wait, I don't know if triple barrel is going to lead somewhere. Can I just ask a follow-up question?
Okay,
and you just carry
please
on.
go on.
Okay, you talked about studying business administration, and I know we've had conversations about how access to funding is a problem in Nollywood. But for you, when we watch your movies, we see a lot of collaborations with brands, So would you say your background in the banking sector has helped you know when to reach out to the brand or what kind of brand and how you get access to fund for your films?
Well, I think that's one of the smartest questions anybody has ever asked me. And of course, the way you put it. The thing is, when I was working in the bank, I was more of a back office person. I worked in corporate affairs, I worked in admin, I worked in, HR, and all of that. And during that time, I was able to build my contact, and then my, relationship with the media, relationship with people in PR, marketing, and all of that. And, you learn how to put proposals together and all. So when I was going to make a rapada, once the script was ready, I looked at it and I looked at, okay, what can I incorporate in area of product placement, because the thing is, I watch a lot of Indian films, and I think a few months to doing Rapada, I watch a particular film where this guy, has supernatural power and he runs more than a horse, and there's a little boy that comes to him and say, oh, I know your secret now. I know you run more than a horse. I'll tell people. If you don't tell me what gives you power. And he says, oh, you really want to know? He said, yes. He said, Bonvita. And the next scene, he said, oh, can't you say that I have power? Then the next scene, we see the guy enters the room and on the table was that can of, that is, of course, over the top product placement. There are ways you can do it, very subtle. So I learned all of that. And that way you can subsidize your budget, especially in this terrain where funding is major issue. You can look at how to render services and then, you know, get money and put it in the in production. And you know, so it's win-win for the brand and also, you know, for the film.
Okay.
All right. So
Fair.
one thing we can take away from you is your picture quality and all of that. So as a filmmaker, producer, and actor at the same time, what would you say is your creative process? Some people like nature, some people like isolation. So what do you do to get that creative? Now, that's one. Now, I would also like to know, what are some of the challenges that you feel the Nollywood industry is facing in terms of funding, and what are the measures to be put in place to make that better? Now, those two, then I'll come back with my follow-up question.
Those are not barrel gone, you know.
Nah.
Anyways, thank you for those questions. The first thing, I mean, anybody who studied what I do would know how, you know, how tied I am to nature. You see all my films, hardly will you see any without either the sea or the ocean or the trees, you know. I mean, but most importantly is my environment, let me put it that way, because, you know, I'm a typical Nigerian. Everything about us, you know, to a large extent is drama. You know, you wake up in the morning, once you step out, even within your house is drama. The house help and the security and the steward will gossip about the oga, you know, and the madam in the house. You know, once you step out, you see people creating their own. But I said this earlier. For me, there are loads of things that I can't seem to compromise, you know, because for me, film is not just entertainment. I don't want people to come to cinema, watch my film, laugh, come out, and you ask them, okay, so what is it? And they're like, no, it's a great film. He's a great, and they really can't say more than that. Which is why I'll always infuse things that will, you know, engage conversation, prompt conversation. You know, a lot of people up till today can't forgive me after watching Figurine, because some of them will still say, they will come and ask questions. That, oh, I don't understand that. But I'm going to say, yeah, I didn't make it to spoon feed. I made it so that you can also think and have your own take, you know, about certain things. Even October 1, people will ask questions. Why did certain thing? That is why I'm the author. You know, you create, and you create for posterity's sake, you know, not for one-off, laugh, go in and out, and that's it. Figurine was made in 2009, and that was 10 years ago. And up till now, people still talk about it a lot. It's being used in universities, you know, when it comes to African studies and, you know, African cinema studies, Figurine and October 1. Hundreds of students have done their thesis, you know, based on the Figurine and October 1. So you get to talk and do a lot of interviews. That is what I stand for, you know, and that all can be tied to the fact that your environment has influenced, you know, the kind of story that, you know, you tell. I worry less about the future. Most times I worry more about where I'm coming from and where I am now. And that determines my next step really every day. In terms of funding, you know, for film, before now, you know, is either you get your family to give you money or you get friends, you look for investors. It's difficult to get investors because the structure, the revenue structure, you know, that we had in place then, you know, does not really state the revenue stream. So when you're pitching your project to someone, how do you really say this is what you're gonna make? And if you could say it, how will you show it or justify it? So it was difficult. And then from the beginning, I've always used bank loan to fund film, which in Hollywood, they completely advise against. But when you don't have choice and you're a budding filmmaker, you just want to tell stories, you look for funding, in any, every possible available means. And so I've always used bank loan to fund film. But of recent, things seem to be getting a bit settled because the cinema chain is growing. So now you can guarantee return to an extent.
Yeah.
And of course, there is record. The cinemas can always give you printout of what your film has made.
Yeah.
So if you're making another content, you can tender it to investors and say, look, this is what we made in cinema. This is what DVD made. This is what online terrestrial, streaming and all of that, made. Also, some of the banks are also like out now, I think government created some special funds for film. BOI has a Nolly fund, which comes at a reduced interest rate. So some of us also access that. Nobody wants to take loan, if you're not going to have return on investment. But I must tell you that it's really been difficult getting return on investment.
Right.
But if you're really a true filmmaker, you can't stop.
I like the fact that you brought up October 1st because in 2015 you were backlash for saying that the Igbo tribe is the majority group in charge of copyright infringements and all that. And then you also came out with a complaint that October 1st, as soon as it was released, was out in the market, and then it was being...
Even before it was released.
Even before it was released, it was being pirated and all. So are you still of the opinion that it's the Igbo people? And a popular actress came out recently to say that producers and directors are actually the ones in charge of pirating their own CDs and their own intellectual property and all that. Do you believe in that? And do you still believe the Igbo tribe is still...
Look, that is, for me, it's a foregone issue. We dealt with it, and, it's been... but the truth is, right now, you still can't... go on the street yourself and see, I'm not going to say more than that. But that is one avenue that ought to guarantee, a very good, reasonable return on investment. But now it's a no-go area. We have like 4 films that we've done that are that are due for DVD release, but we can't even release because the minute you release, it gets pirated that very day, and for me, if that is not sorted, we're still gonna be in serious mess, because you and I, we have our phones, we do a lot of things on it, we watch content, but that is just like 5% of the entire population in Nigeria. Sure. A lot of people still rely on their VCD and their DVD machines in their house because they don't have access to data. And even if they have access to data, they can't afford to have 1 gig to stream, like a whole film. So that avenue is so key to even the GDP of Nigeria economy, not to talk of just the filmmaker benefiting from it. So if we still don't, on my way here, I still saw, a lot of guys selling Nigerian, content, on the streets. So it's left to us. Not just the filmmakers or the practitioners, it's left to the entire country to take a stand, because it applies not only to films but even to books, even to every intellectual property you can think of. So I think it should be addressed nationally.
How about the allegation made by the popular Nigerian actress?
Well, I didn't read that. I didn't see that.
She said that they
pirate their own that sometimes the producers are the ones actually...
Maybe those looking for popularity. Some people will take their songs or their film. I've heard some people say, look, I just want my film on Netflix. I don't care how much I'm being paid. People
Exposure.
do content for different reasons. And
Yeah.
some people are hungry for exposure. But if you take bank loan, 100 million, and you've invested in a project,
You're not looking for
you now say, okay, because I want exposure, let me pirate it. How can you possibly, see, that thing is not as easy as, a lot of people like, because of the free access to this thing, people just talk. When a film is made, for you to even do piracy and for that thing to really go around, if you're doing DVD, it means you need to first import the disc, then you have to go through the process of copying it on all of this thing.
Sorry, because of
It's,
time, I think we'll continue this conversation on one-on-one. But before I let you go, you've mentioned environmental influence, and Mokalik is going to be in the cinemas May 31st, right? Just briefly, what exactly is it with you and mechanics? Because I know you enrolled your son.
Your son, yes, true that.
What do you want Nigerians to get from this movie when they go to see it?
No, I mean, it's simple. I just want to encourage people to get their kids, give them vocational training.
Yeah.
I think it is so important.
It is.
In this age and time, kids. Yesterday, I was checking my daughter's phone and I realized she's on Instagram. I never knew she was on Instagram.
Wow.
I told them don't go on Instagram. But there is little to how much you can cop these things, because when they go to school, they pick things.
Yeah.
So engage them. Let them go and learn sewing. Let them go and learn. I was telling someone and he said his kids are learning barbing. Let them go and, the long holiday is coming. They're going to be home for like 2 months. Whatever it is their brain picks now, it stays with them forever.
Right.
And you're never sure where you're going to end up. So Mokalik is a film that everybody needs to see. We're premiering on the 30th at Terra Culture.
Okay.
It's a very exclusive premiere. But the next day is releasing in cinemas all over Nigeria and Ghana.
You heard it from Kunle Afolayan himself. May 31st, Mokalik will be available in all cinemas in Nigeria and Ghana. And that's where we wrap up on Tea Time this morning. Join us this afternoon for fresh episodes of the program. Until then, thank yous as always go to my co-anchor, Ife Oshokeye and Ife Omai, the entire production team, and of course, our studio guest, Kunle Afolayan. Do join us later today for fresh episodes of the program. My name is Elsie Godwin saying thank you for watching.